Thanks very much for that introduction, Amanda. It's actually taken a bit of the intro out of my talk today, which is good because lunch is arriving, so I'm sure people are hungry. But you've set it up really well for me because I think some people in this room are quite familiar with what Habitat Positive is, and others are probably asking why is Taronga doing this, and isn't it a bit of a leap from operating the zoos, which to getting into landscape restoration? So today, hopefully, I can help explain some of the the catalysts and the how and the why, and bring some quite real world and tangible context to these big challenging concepts we've been talking about so far today. So Taronga is one of those places where the average guest, the average stakeholder only sees a very small portion of what we actually do. And some of you may not know that we're involved in about 15 state and national threatened species recovery programs. It's about 6 or 7 species that would be extinct if it wasn't for some of the work that we do. And recently, we've worked with partners to reintroduce greater bilbies and chuditch to Sturt National Park in New South Wales. These are species that are listed as extinct in New South Wales and have been absent in this state for over 100 years. We also, across our 2 zoos, have the biggest cryodiversity bank of tropical corals in the Southern Hemisphere. And our reproductive biologists are part of the Great Barrier Reef Restoration Adaptation Team, who are using assisted reproductive technologies to essentially translocate and move corals around the reef that are more resilient to warming waters and create a more resilient reef for our future. Our team of 40 scientists have published 42 scientific papers this financial year. We've undertaken 10 conservation translocations. Our spread of the biological work we undertake ranges from critically endangered snails to critically endangered ecosystems. And we also work with a really broad range of corporate partners on issues from, plastic spoons in ice cream supply chains to chocolate companies and using certified sustainable palm oil in their value chains and product production as well. So we have this really broad set of work that we do, and it's all sort of below the iceberg of what you experience when you're walking around the zoo today. But behind me is a Regent honeyeater. This is one of our legacy species. This is a species we've been working on for over 20 years. And I'm going to use this species to really provide that really real-world example of what we're doing and why we're doing it. But regents are a nomadic nectar-feeding pollinator. We know from single point-to-point observations that they can cover thousands of kilometres in a single year. And this is relatively unique within the Australian landscape. And there's only a small number of other species like swift parrots that occupy a similar niche. And so why does this matter? So as the birds feed on a variety of eucalypt and other species, they get pollen from the flower, that's genetic material, and then they can move that genetic material long distances, pollinate another tree. When you move genetic material over distance, generally you increase genetic diversity. You also increase allelic diversity, and you increase adaptive potential. So they are creating resilient forests and woodlands with adaptive potential for the future. And that's not something that a lot of the pollinators who travel much shorter distances can help us do. This long-distance pollination matters to every one of us, our societies and our businesses, and we heard earlier today why the value of these ecosystem services is so important. Obviously, they're important for our society, they're important for us, they're important for our profit margins. And while you may be able to decarbonise your value chain, you can't denature it. Every time we lose a species from an area, clear some habitat, or have an extinction event, we lose a link in the value chain which generates the necessities of life. Nature isn't a nice to have, it's an essential, which is why we're all here today. Sorry. So these Regent honeyeaters behind me, they're critically endangered. There's only about 300 birds remaining in the wild. I said we've been working on them for about 20 years. So we do a lot of research, but we breed and release these birds. And in 2022, with our partners, we published a population viability analysis in the journal Conservation Biology, demonstrated a few things really clearly. Firstly, that release program, it's preventing the extinction of this species, but it's not recovering it. We ran 36 different models with a whole bunch of different assumptions and scenarios to see what it would take to recover this species. Not surprisingly, it's restoring the habitat which has been lost, which it and so many others depend on. Region's preferred habitat is boxgum, grassy woodland associated communities. And you can think of this broadly as open eucalypt woodland systems that run along the western side of the Great Dividing Range from Victoria through New South Wales and into Queensland. 93% of all boxgum communities have been entirely cleared. And similar scary stats are true for a lot of those other eucalypt woodland communities in those areas. It's not surprising then that around 250 listed threatened species are associated with those woodland communities. In my career, I've worked across NGOs, universities and government. And Taronga is unique in having a 100-year history, being a New South Wales statutory authority that also makes its own money, and operating a diverse range of businesses from our zoos, world-class accommodation offerings, world-class education offerings. We have the technical expertise, we have the business acumen, and we have the governance structures to undertake long-term transformational projects. That's why Taronga, because we have the passion and the drive for these species, and we have the structure behind us to commit to the long term. For nearly 5 years, we've been developing Habitat Positive, a conservation and restoration program driven by science and aiming to restore tens of thousands of hectares to ensure a future for our most iconic and endangered species. By putting biodiversity first, threatened species outcomes and climate change modelling has driven our site selection and restoration planning. And earlier this year, we secured our first site in the northern tablelands of New South Wales. On this site, and in the future and others, we'll undertake holistic environmental monitoring and conservation management. Around a third of the first 3,000 hectare sanctuary will be covered by an environmental plantings project generating ACCUs, with the outcomes for woodland birds, koalas, native vegetation, and native mammals being verified through the Accounting for Nature framework. Sorry. Alongside these ACCUs, social, cultural and community outcomes will form a unique part of our partnership proposition as well. So new and existing corporate partners to Taronga, through these partnerships, getting access to high integrity ACCUs with verified biodiversity outcomes, we have a funding base that plays a pivotal role in the long-term management of these sites for long-term nature outcomes. As the director here responsible for conservation and also for sustainability of Taronga's operations, I have a unique position and work on both sides of the ledger and know the challenges all too well. We have public-facing science-based targets for our sustainability strategy. And pursuing progress and solutions against these targets, it can be easy to be attracted to a quick fix or some good marketing, or dare I say it, even greenwashing. And when it comes to ACCUs, the market and the science has very clearly told us that integrity and abatement and claimed co-benefits is paramount. First through standardification and verification, and now through CarbonPlus, Accounting for Nature, are striving to give consumers in ACCUs confidence of their investment in nature. And market confidence is, of course, vital to ensure that these environmental markets really do begin to mitigate the climate and biodiversity risks and crisis we face. So really commend Accounting for Nature's team for taking leadership in this space. Taronga's Habitat Positive will deliver for nature first and foremost. But by doing that and working with our partners, we will help them progress ESG targets and sustainability targets. And we will work with partners across industry, communities and corporates to secure a shared future for wildlife and people. Thanks.